Now, there's a couple of the lists in this book. Here's another one. This is the one that's talking about the simple virtues that provide a firm foundation. So here we go. 1, a man has honor if he holds himself to a course of conduct because of a conviction that it is in the general interest, even though he is well aware that it may lead to inconvenience, personal loss, humiliation, or grave physical risk. So when he says general interest, he's talking about like the team. So you're going to hold that conviction. Even if it's good for the team, you're going to hold that course. Even if you're well aware that it may lead to inconvenience, personal loss, humiliation, or grave physical risk. Boom. That's what honor is. You don't hear honor laid out that well very often. He has veracity if, having studied a question to the limit of his ability, he says and believes what he thinks to be true, even though it would be the path of least resistance to deceive others and himself. So this is kind of in the same vein. If you look at something and maybe you don't agree with it, but the easiest thing to do would just be agree with it. Right. No, you don't do that. You step up and say, hey, no, I don't agree with this. Now, we could go into detail on that in the times when you do want to maybe not be the most truthful person in the world. For instance, we've talked about this before. When your wife is making chicken and it's dry, right? It might not be the best thing to tell her the amount of water that you're going to need to drink. So, but in real things and important things, tell the truth. Back to the book. Number 3, he has justice if he acknowledges the interests of all concerned in any particular transaction rather than serving his own apparent interest. Look out for others. Number 4, he has graciousness if he acts and speaks forthrightly, agrees warmly, disagrees fairly and respectfully, participates enthusiastically, refrains from harboring grudges, takes his reverses in stride, and does not complain or ask for help in the face of trifling calamities. Those are just solid. Those are just solid. I would say this, though. Sometimes you got to ask for help, right? That's one thing that when I work with businesses, there'll be somebody that's, I'm extreme ownership and I'm going to own this. Right. And all of a sudden you realize, hey, you're owning that, but you're not going to be successful at it because that's too much for you. Yeah. You need help. You need to put your ego in check and you need to be able to raise your hand and say, look, I need some help on this. I don't have this covered. This is too much for me. I wasn't expecting this. Yeah. Here's my hands in the air. Let me get some help.
It sometimes seems like it's not necessarily even ego. It's more like, I guess in a way it's ego, but it's more like, shoot, I don't want to be the guy who has to be dependent on somebody or something like that. Like
which is what?
Extreme ownership.
Which is ego, actually. If you're the guy that doesn't want to be dependent on other people, that's probably your ego. But you are. I think what you're trying to say is that I don't want to be the guy that has to ask for help. I want to be that guy that carries my own load.
Yes.
You know what? Exactly. I'd see this on SEAL patrols a couple times in my career where guys were overloaded and they didn't want to ask for help.
Right. I got this.
Because it's humiliating. You know, hey, can you carry my ammunition? Or hey, can you carry my radio? Yeah. Can you carry my weapon? That's I've seen it happen. I've carried some extra weapons from time to time, and it's a bummer, you know. Yeah. And you know what? You take the weapon. Hey, man. Okay. Get some water in you, you know? Yeah. But that's what you're talking about. People don't want to be that guy. But what's going to be worse? If they don't take a load off and they get a heat casualty and now they're down, well, now I got to carry him, not just his weapon, which is a bad situation.
And we don't have him anymore.
Yeah. And he can't fight. Yeah, he can't even do anything.
Dang. As opposed to the other guy who doesn't know the difference between needing help and wanting help. The guy who's just like, help me. Yeah. Because he don't want to work.
I had a guy one time. We were on a long patrol. This is back in the day. This is pre-war. And my radio man, because I was a radio man when I was enlisted guy. And now I wasn't a radio man. I was an officer. And we were on a long patrol. And my radio man was going down. Like didn't have enough water, was dehydrated, was weak. And so he was bummed. You know, he couldn't keep up with us anymore. And I said, okay, let me get your radio. So I'm taking a 20-pound radio off his back, putting it in my back. I'm carrying it for, I don't know, half a day. And then we get to a layup point. So this is where we're going to, for a civilian, this is where we're going to camp out for the night. And when we get there, we get a resupply of water and, Gatorade or whatever. So all of a sudden now everyone's rehydrated. And while we're in there, we got to make a communications hit to, got to call headquarters and say, hey, this is our location. So he comes and takes the radio out of my backpack. He comes over, hey, let me get the radio so I can make this communications. I go, yeah, cool. Open up my bag, give it to him. And, he makes the radio communications, and I'm out doing like a reconnaissance of the area to find out what route we're going to take. Anyways, I thought, now he's rehydrated.
Right.
He's going to take that radio and, we'll be back in the game. So I come back, and when I get back, the radio was sitting on my rucksack. I was like, oh no. But you know what I did? Put it back in my rucksack and carried it. Yeah, you just got to do it. But yeah, so you don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Once you get rehydrated, man, get your weight back on. It's a bummer.
Yeah. The difference between needing help and wanting
help. And he did need help.
Yeah.
At one point, but once the Gatorades come in, you're good to go.
Yeah.
You need to take that radio back. I was chuckling inside when I saw that radio been placed back on top of my rod. Not inside, but just placed on top.
Yeah. You got it from here.
Yeah, you got
put
this.
it back in,
Thanks.
and we'll be all good here.
Awesome. Good times in the teams. And the last one here, he has integrity if his interest in the good of the service is at all times greater than his personal pride, and when he holds himself to the same line of duty when unobserved as he would follow if all his superiors were present. This is the classic. What do you do when when people aren't looking? Here's another point. The cause of much of the friction in administrative machinery is that at all levels, there are individuals who insist on standing in their own light. Now, this is a term that I actually had to look up. Standing in your own light. It means getting in your own way. It means you're preventing your own success. And he uses the term a bunch in here. Okay. Standing in your own light. This is important. They believe that there is some special magic, some quick springboard to success. They mistakenly think that it can be won by bootlicking, apple polishing, yesing higher authority, playing office politics, throwing weight around, ducking the issue, striving for cheap popularity, courting publicity, or seeking any and all means of grabbing the spotlight. So this is the guy, everybody that's listening to this podcast right now knows who I'm talking about. That guy. That guy that's just always trying to kiss everyone's ass and make himself look good. And that's, that's a shortcut, right? This is what Marshall's saying is a shortcut or a springboard. You think it's a quick springboard. Back to the book. Any one of this set of tricks may enable a man to carry the ball forward a yard or two in some special situation. But at least this comment can be made without qualification. Of the men who have risen to supreme heights in the fighting establishment of the United States and have had their greatness proclaimed by their fellow countrymen, there is not one career which provides any warrant for the conclusion that there is a special shortcut known only to the smart operators. True enough, a few men have gained fairly high rank by dint of what late Mr. Justice Holmes called the instinct for the jugular, a feeling of when to jump and where to press and how to slash in order to achieve somewhat predatory personal ends. That will occasionally happen in any walk of life. And I say this all the time. I've said this on this podcast. If you got that guy that we're talking about, sometimes they're gonna get a better recommendation. But sometimes they're gonna get that promotion that you were wanting, and you just held the line and were a good person. That person took the credit for something, and no one really realized. And next thing you know, they get the promotion. But I agree with what's being said here. That does happen sometimes in every walk of life. But in the long run, that person's going down.
Yeah.
That person's going down in the long run.
Yeah. And the more you kind of depend on that sort of thing, the less likely for any kind of success anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. And he says here, but from Washington, Wayne, and Jones down to Eisenhower, Vandegrift, and Nimitz, the men best loved by the American people for their military successes were also the men with greatness of soul.